Hey everyone, how you doing? Cool. We're going to talk about disruption. You've heard a lot about it today. I want to bring up the panel, but before I do that, I really want to talk about the shift that's going on. But as we do that, and we bring up the panel up here, let's bring on Tom, let's bring on Martin, and let's bring on Ronald up here. This shift that we're seeing in digital disruption is something that is beyond. I mean, you're seeing it as you work on API orchestration, you're seeing it as you see what happens in terms of integration, but more importantly, there's a business model shift that's making that change. And that's why it's so important to have these gentlemen on stage. And we're going to make some quick introductions of each of them, and we'll talk about the industries and talk about your role in that industry. So let's start with you, Tom.
Thanks, Ray. Tom Quinn. I work for News Corporation in Australia. We're a media company, 150 brands of different media outlets around Australia and around the world. We're a disrupted organisation. If you work in media or you have anything to do with media, you know that that business has been well and truly disrupted.
So give us some brands, some newspaper titles, magazine titles.
Oh, well, in this country it's the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post. In the UK it's the Times of London, the Sun. In Australia there's 125 mastheads around the country, all with digital properties, all with digital delivery. And the disruption is life-threatening for us. And we have to get our heads around how to best manage that disruption and become a disruptor.
Got it. Now, Ronald, on your end, you're on the other extreme end. You're
Yes.
covering an insurance side. Let's hear about what you do.
I'm the CIO for Sagicor Financial Corporation. We are a diversified financial services company predominantly operating in the Caribbean. As you move from Aruba up through the chain of islands up to Jamaica, you'll find the Sagicor brand is a dominant market player in life insurance, group health insurance, pensions, and services of that sort. We also, in the last decade or so, have made inroads into the United States. And disruption in our industry is a little different. In part because it's heavily regulated, and I should emphasize when we talk about insurance, we use that monolithic term, but property and casualty insurance is a vastly different breed of cat than life insurance, which is a vastly different breed of cat than group health insurance. And so disruption lives at different planes. It could be in your go-to-market model. It could be in the speed with which you're able to fulfill a policy request. It could be the speed with which you're able to respond to a claim request. So disruption is happening in many different areas, and you can actually anticipate a level of disruption that I have not as yet seen, but I would hypothesize. I don't know how many people wear some sort of fitness tracking device, Fitbit or some such thing. You can envision, as when you underwrite insurance, especially life insurance, the healthier the population, the lower the cost of the insurance offering should be for that population. Imagine a world where your life insurance carrier is able to tap into that regular data stream from those various and sundry fitness tracking devices, and being able to use that to better tailor an offering to you based on your health parameters.
I'm leaving my Fitbit on my dog.
Of course, that is the other side of the problem, is how do you manage,
All right, we're going to get a Martin.
How do you control for that?
Martin, you are part of Deloitte's, one of Deloitte's fastest growing practices. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, first of all, good morning. I appreciate everybody's time. And to be a disruptor, I think I need to get a picture from this decade. So I'll have to get a new profile picture here. But yeah, I'm a principal in our digital practice and a practice leader for cloud ERP and integration. And as Ray said, part of one of the fastest growing practices at Deloitte, in Deloitte Consulting. And we're both disruptors, at least we hope to be, and disrupted, in the sense that clearly we develop marketplace and offerings within the market as disruption occurs and try to enable them and leverage them from an innovation standpoint. But from a disruptor standpoint, we try to move very fast once we're disrupted to the marketplace and try and drive value, significant value from a client standpoint, but through enabling technologies, disruptive business models, and influencing innovation at the corporate level to filter all the way down to the customer.
No, that's great. And please join us and welcome them. Give them one round of applause for being up here. Thank you very much. So I'm going to set the stage, right? There's a stat that we've been looking at across the book. 52% of the Fortune 500 have been merged, acquired, gone bankrupt, or fallen off the list since 2000. Massive amount of change. Some people like to think it's part of the internet. Some people like to think it's, global financial crisis, something like the rise of startups and all these things that are happening. But there's something underlying this, and that's a lot more powerful. We're seeing a digital market where winner takes all. If you think about inside every industry you're in, every industry, the difference between the #1 player and #2 and #3, in many cases, the #1 player is almost as big as the second and third player in every market. And we look at the top 3 in almost every market, it's taking anywhere from 40 to 70% of the market share, anywhere from 25% to 77% of all the profits. It is a digital divide that is continuing. And with that kind of context, we're seeing massive disruption. And we're also seeing a compression in the life of a company. There's a study that shows the S&P 500. When the S&P 500 started in 1960, the average age of a company was 60 years old. They're projecting anywhere between 10 to 15 years by 2025. That's a 5x compression of companies that are shifting. And this is the pace of change, and that's kind of the setting for the next set of questions. So this digital divide that we're sitting in is really creating this need for digital businesses, digital business models, which we are experiencing today. And so when we see this right now, what is that disruption? Are you disrupting or are you being disrupted? I'm going to start with you, Tom.
Well, certainly we're disrupted, that's for sure. The consumer is driving our business model digital, well, it has for 10 years. And this is an old business, talking about how old business has been around. This business has been around for over 100 years in some form or another. And newspapers have been around since the printing press. So we are definitely disrupted, and the speed at which we're being disrupted is manic. As consumers, as you people in the room, determine on a daily basis how you will consume your news on traditional media, on traditional media companies' websites, or on social media, or however else you get it. We have to respond to that. We also would like to think we're disruptors because we can write about anything we like, and we can disrupt everybody in this room. And sometimes we do.
But don't let the facts get in the way.
That's exactly right. But somebody has to write the content that is not on social media. Somebody has to be the trusted journalist that will give you his opinion or her opinion. And those epic photographs of disasters and joyful moments, they don't take their own selfies, and they don't get themselves onto that digital environment that we're all looking to. So certainly disrupted, hoping to disrupt.
Right, and the business models are crazy, right? I mean, print advertising revenue hasn't replaced digital in this shift.
No, this is an Australian number, but it would be true also of the United States and Europe. For you take $1 of print advertising and put it online, it's worth 18 cents. You take that in your business model and stick it where the sun don't shine. That hurts. That really hurts a business. So, we are moving from being manufacturers of a hard copy printed product to being retailers of all sorts of content in all sorts of different ways, be it recipe sites where you can pick, Ray, what you cook for dinner tonight, if you cook at all, in fact.
I do.
To sports offerings, where you can get your 3 favourite sports delivered to your device wherever you are, whenever you are, and scores and the like. All sorts of different offerings that are specific and not as generalised as a newspaper used to be.
So you're getting into mass personalisation at scale.
Oh, absolutely. We need manufacturers, we're now retailers. We need to know who our customers are. We were talking about data before. I need to know every fact about you that I can, so that I can prevent you, number one, from churning off the product once you've bought it, and then I can upsell you and cross-sell you and continue to deliver my products to you to get a bigger share of your wallet. And that's the only way that we get out of this $1 in advertising to 18 cents. It's the only way our company survives.
Got it. Ronald, what's shifting? What's changing in your market?
Broad demographics are really affecting insurance. The baby boom generation is retiring and going into a radically different phase of life. And younger generations are picking up the mantle, but they don't necessarily buy the same way, and they don't necessarily have the same risk tolerances as their parents or grandparents might have. And so reaching a new market, reaching a new demographic of 20-somethings, 30-somethings who may not yet have much to lose. When you have insurance, you have to have something to lose. It's that you care enough about. A little moral hazard. Well, at the end of the day, somebody's going to be underwriting that risk, and if you don't have anything to lose, well, then you don't need insurance. But on the other end, assuming that you do accumulate wealth and are successful, you will want to protect your downside risk.
But does it change?
And it does change because of how the dialogue takes place with a trusted advisor. Is that a chaperoned experience, or is the nature of the conversation with an insurance company much more oriented toward, we provide an array of services that some cross-section of the marketplace is interested in doing their own research, evaluating the options, doing their own comparisons, and then if the package looks right, if the value proposition is there, then reaching out and engaging. And that's a very different discussion.
But has it also changed in terms of who pays for that insurance? Was it employer-driven before?
Well, on the individual life side, it's always...
That has never changed.
That doesn't change.
Just the changing age of when people get married in terms of those stats.
What you find is on the group policies side, as companies are trying to figure out how should they offer a holistic compensation solution for prospective employees or current employees, they're making trade-offs. The regulatory environment in terms of how healthcare systems work in the U.S. at least, certainly has an effect. So
this is really disruptive here.
Yes, there's a variety of disruptions, and what as I look at it, it's less about the Uber platform disruption or Amazon or an iTunes business model, but there are layers within the value chain, and understanding those various segments within the value chain where your companies are differentiating and where you're accumulating labor and cost and systems gives you a target to start saying, you know what, I can attack that. I can change the nature of competition if I do something in that slice.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Martin, you see a lot of different industries, a lot of different types of companies. Any broader trends on who's disrupting or being disrupted?
Well, in terms of who's being disrupted, it's a lot of what we've just heard, right? We're hearing the smaller organizations, the companies that just get it, right? High tech, they get it. They know they need to be innovative. And they need to be competitive in the marketplace. So they're absolutely going to be disruptive. Then you've got sort of this middle layer, and I'm going to oversimplify it. Companies that consider margin, right? And when you're marginally challenged, when you have margin challenge, you're looking for speed to value. You're looking for quick turnaround, and the disruptive technologies and the disruptive business models and so forth tend to facilitate that. And then you have this third layer, and it's corporations that get value based on innovation and disruption. And it's a slower turn for them, but they recognize the fact that the only way that they're going to continue to be competitive in the marketplace, that they're in the business of information, is starting to think about how can I leverage these disruptors, how can I be disrupted, and actually execute them to provide true value, improve my margins and revenue and so forth. But really it's a slower turn for them. I think for the most part, and we see that directly impacting us, for the most part, consumers everywhere are changing the way they buy. And they change the way, and I think you just gave a great example, they change the way that they buy professional services. We're seeing a lot more value-based deals. Sure. Because the services we're leveraging, turning the crank on enabling technology has become more commoditized, and it's about getting to that value quicker. So we're seeing everybody from small to large, even changing the way that they're buying services from us and forcing more value-based deals.
Yeah, I know we're seeing that product companies are giving away products for services. Look at your cell phone. You buy a service contract, they give it to you for free. Services companies are giving away services for experiences. Think about the freemium model that's been driving that. And experiences companies are giving experiences away for outcomes. You're buying uptime, or you're buying different levels of that. And then outcome companies are giving away outcomes for brand promises. It's like, what are we buying? So we're kind of in that kind of shift. But as we think about that shift, I mean, one of the things that's different is in each of your industries, though, there's something. There's like a project. There's an entry point, something that people are starting with. I'll start with you, Ronald. What is that entry point, right? We talked about incremental innovation, transformational innovation. Is there a piece that is one that sticks out for you more?
Our company operates in 20+ countries around the Caribbean and in the U.S. And our heritage is 175 years old, and as a consequence, of its long life and an acquisition approach, you have lots of stuff that's gotten collected over the course of those years. And so as we look at our transformation, it's how do we harmonize? How do we move past all of the country-specific differences, some of which were real, some of which were habituated? How do we establish much more shared service orientation, such that our organizational clock speed can be much faster, so that the velocity of business can accelerate.
So you're trying to harmonize those acquisitions and potentially work faster in post-merger integration.
Not only the acquisitions, but across the enterprise. So there's no slice of our value chain where we're not looking to how do we ramp up speed.
Makes sense. Now, on your end, what shifts? Like, what are projects or things that kind of drive that first discussion?
Well, it's sort of outside in. It is speed, absolutely. We need to get quicker. We need to get quicker to respond to our customers, our consumers' wants, which is everything right now, up-to-the-minute news. And up-to-the-minute news means our whole business has to change. In the good old days, as some journalists would tell you, they'd roll into work at 11:30 or 12 with a great big cup of joe, couple of Tylenol to dull the pain from last evening, sit down at their desk and have a Big Mac and get a bit of grease going and get the body flowing and the mind working on the story they're going to write, because they need to jump start it. And then, they might journey to the local watering hole at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, just to, keep the juices flowing, and then they'd make the deadline, they'd go and do it all over again. Shake, repeat. You can't do that now. You wake up this morning, probably went to your smartphone at 6 a.m. and started to look at what's been happening in the world overnight. That means our newsrooms need to be cranking flat out at 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. to get all that news prepared, written, onto the platforms and disseminated. And it doesn't stop until everybody's in bed. If you've got an international audience, then you go longer. So from a less than 12-hour newsroom, we've gone to a 24-hour newsroom in the space of a few years. And that's driven enormous internal change in our business. And with the falls in revenue, we've had to do it with less people. So we've had to consolidate our tech stacks, our technology platforms, the systems that create our content, so that we can share content around the globe and everybody doesn't have to write the story on the big deal. We can share a lot of pieces. So customer outside in, changing business model inside, and sharing a lot of, rooting out duplication and eliminating it.
So Tom, you guys talked about speed and the need to actually respond to speed and respond to customers at the speed that they want.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting thing. Martin, on your end, what are you seeing as well from clients?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it's centralized around cost management, but speed is extremely important. In the back office, we see a lot of cost management. How do I optimize the workforce? In industrial environments, we're seeing wearables truly being adopted very quickly, so that the mobile workforce is more effective and optimized, and spends less time, searching through the supply chain to find inventory. You're seeing shared services, trying to consolidate, standardize, harmonization. You're seeing a more focused entry into the marketplace and non-organic growth from an M&A standpoint and divestiture, where companies are starting, and this plays a little bit on the back end, where they're starting to look at the inflection or the injection of their business model as a disruptor on an acquisition that's very targeted and focused in the marketplace, and then looking at the value that they get post-merger from a harmonization standpoint. And then at the end of the day, customer is what drives everything. We're seeing a lot of work in terms of the non-traditional. You see a lot of retail, certainly insurance, and high tech and telecom and so forth. But now we're starting to see it in the very slow-moving industries, particularly where I spend my time in energy, where the customer experience is very challenging and it's slow and it's not connected. And we're seeing a lot of transformation from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, and you guys recently just put out a report on digital and retail that's hitting the shelves, and a lot of people are picking that up and talking about what those shifts are around business models. I'm going to keep you here and really talk about these different business models. Like, what are some of these new business models that you're seeing as they make that shift? Energy is a great one, especially a highly regulated market. Thinking about the shift in consumers, ratepayer challenges that are out there as well. Let's start there.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. It's really about, when in the energy industry, right, it's really about, truly about infrastructure, not the back office. So every penny that goes into keeping the lights on, no pun intended, is really the most important value of that. So from a business model standpoint, we're seeing a little more decentralized operations, as I talked about the mobile workforce, but with some level of standardization. We're seeing a lot of harmonization across the back office in those business models, and then looking out into the marketplace, as I indicated, and saying, okay, from my business model standpoint, this is how I'm going to operate. The acquisition isn't just an asset-focused value; it's the business model that we're going to inject on top of it in terms of how we drive margin and where we are in the marketplace.
Does that require more integration, less integration, more API management, less API management?
Well, that's a great question. It's really on the cusp of changing to less integration. I think they're starting to see the value of, I don't need to lift and shift an entire infrastructure onto mine. It's the API, right? It's all about the connection, and they're starting to see a lot of value. So we're right on the cusp in that particular industry of getting over the hurdle that there's true value in terms of squeezing infrastructure and driving everything on top of a common platform, and it's more focused on integration. And the other business model, it's hard to call it a business model, but it's the biggest challenge in the environment culturally, is truly getting to an analytic view of the world, right? And it's not about the presentation layer. It's really about, how do I ask the question, what challenge am I trying to solve? And culturally, we see that as a business model change in the marketplace, because most of our clients want to throw technology at it or a business process, and the reality is, step back and ask yourself, what is it I'm trying to solve?
So you're moving them away from throwing a technology solution to saying, what's the end in mind, and what are the questions we need to ask of those insights that are coming out?
And everything will follow, absolutely.
Got it, makes a lot of sense. Tom, on your end, what's shifted? What business model do you have to deliver in terms of you're changing initiatives? Do you change something on the ad tech side? Do you change something on the content creation, content distribution? Is it deeper than that?
Well, it's deeper. Whatever we do has to be quick, but it hasn't been quick, if that makes sense. We've had to rebuild our tech stack end to end to get this speed happening, to get the ability to share content across the globe.
What did you have before?
We had old premise-bound individual content creation engines.
One from every city, one for every paper?
Correct, absolutely. Okay. And the ability to share that content around the world was minimal. So we've rebuilt that tech stack. We've built much larger but off-premise pieces of kit and software. But the flexibility that we need is driven by that. We need the flexibility, we need new systems, we need to be able to plug and play, because our survival is about doing two things. It's about using the content we already have in a better way. I think I said before, you know, we've got a number of sites that talk about recipes. It's selling you what you're going to cook for dinner tonight. And it's hooking that recipe site up to the Walmart shopping trolley and being able to automatically get a shopping list and the like. And it's also plugging new products in alongside traditional content, like financial services, financial advice next to our business sections, and things like that. So it's utilising our content in different ways and adding value add for our customer that we can, again, gain more share of wallet by building businesses alongside.
So basically taking that content, applying context as it fits,
yes,
to drive campaigns to convert to commerce.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Ronald, on your end.
Yeah. We talk about speed. I'm trying to get a sense of just how the intelligent use of technology can affect outcomes on the time to fulfillment plane. So typically, if you go, if you go get an insurance policy, life insurance policy, there's an array of questions that you'll be asked. There may be blood tests, there may be doctor visits, there's all sorts of information. And so you've decided that you want to protect your downside risk. You believe you have some sense of what you want to do about it, but the ability to actually put that coverage in place is elongated. From the time you make that decision to the time you actually get that policy protection in place could be 20 days, could be 30 days.
Do you lose a lot of people in that process today?
No, it's an industry problem.
Okay.
It's an industry problem. And what we've been able to do is rethink that whole process. And in fact, for within certain parameters, we're able to now deliver life insurance policies for certain class of people within, well, the decision making with an advisor can happen right then as you're having that conversation, and you would have approval, final approval, within 24 hours.
So you sped up that process by 100x.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So that's kind of one of those big shifts.
That's a big shift.
Got it. Okay. So we see this, right? You guys are kind of hinted around this on the question around applications everywhere, some in the cloud, some in different places, lots of silos of information. Who here's got a silo of information problem? Raise your hands. So
who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? And so the question really is like, what are you doing right? What are you trying to do to get to this cross-functional visibility? Like, what's the shift in terms of getting to this type of information, different types of tools that you're applying? I'll start with you, Martin. So what are people going with?
Yeah, well, the silo is absolute critical element in all of this, and I think a lot of our customers and our clients are starting to see that. The initial challenge is what information do I need and who owns it? And so we actually see a lot of upfront work from a strategy standpoint, just in terms of who owns the information and what information is required from an analytics standpoint. When you talk to the back office from a financial perspective, they own everything, except that when you talk to the marketing folks, they own everything. And then you find little cachet of additional information, a cadre of information that you pull together and integrate. So we're seeing a lot of as I indicated, starting a little bit backwards, a lot of companies starting to build out data lakes in terms of trying to get to the analytic view of the world, and really focus on very point issues in that space. But the adoption of SaaS is challenging, I think, for a lot of the bigger companies in terms of their concern around security and so forth. But the reality is they're taking pockets of information, moving there, as I talked a little bit, because they either need to be innovative, they have challenges from a margin perspective, and they need speed to value to solve some issue. So they're starting to move there very quickly. We're seeing it a lot, mostly in the performance management space, and really around the collection and capture of data. The traditional ERP is an area that I typically own. It's quicker adoption on the smaller scale of the end, because the larger organizations feel like, don't recognize that the speed and the immediacy of real-time information, what impact that can truly change. They will just try to sort of turn up the volume on the amplifier and try to get that quicker, as opposed to adopting those technologies.
So you're seeing an IT versus shadow IT battle as well?
Absolutely.
Let's do this. Who's on the business side of the house? Raise your hands up here. Everyone on the business side. Raise them up high. All right. Who's on the IT side? All right. You're outnumbered, but turn around and shake hands. So, all right. Ronald, on your end, what's going on? What's that shift? I mean,
in our industry, what we find is that the use of SaaS solutions is really in the enabling functions, HR, some finance.
So I wouldn't put my actuarial tables in the cloud.
You wouldn't put your actuarial tables in the cloud. You wouldn't put
underwriting,
any of your underwriting rules in the cloud.
So I'm protected.
And you wouldn't want us to put it
I don't want you to at all. So even my taxes aren't safe anymore.
Touche. And so as it relates to the impact of SaaS solutions, they're really on the perimeter of the value chain. They're not in the core of what we do at this point. Could one anticipate a time? Perhaps. But right now, it is more of a cost opportunity,
right.
And frankly, it simplifies my life.
But when you abstract information, right, you've got to pull information from all these different silos. What happens there? What do you have to do differently?
So one of the big challenges for any company of scale, the heritage of most IT shops was point-to-point integration, and I know even in Sagicor, there's a cadre of developers who have never seen a point-to-point interface they couldn't build and didn't like. And rethinking that so that they recognize that this isn't about your technical chops. This is about business value, and that's a harder switch to flip. But it is doable.
So you're giving out pins that have a little slash that say no hand coding, like with a little slash on it. Instead of no software, no hand coding.
We don't want to be a guild anymore. That's correct.
All right, Tom, on your end.
So we're running as fast as we can to getting everything we do either as a SaaS platform or something we write ourselves and have in the cloud. And yes, it's for cost, but generally, that's neither here nor there. It's for speed. We give away our flashing lights. We give away our costly and timely software upgrades every 2 years. We give away capital expenditure projects. We give that away for agility and speed. The speed, firstly, to get there, and the speed to be able to not be held up by those things that generally, if we're having our on-premise platforms generally that we have to put up with. What it means, though, is that we now have not silos of data, but classes of data in different spots. Our Salesforce is our CRM, it sits over here. Our human resources system is Workday, it sits over here. Our financials is in the cloud over here. Our content creation is currently on premise, but the data is kept in Amazon over here. And you need to get very good at what we're talking about for this whole conference is APIs, to ship that, to get the end-to-end transaction journey for all different types of data, from order to cash, from people going on leave, from writing a story to getting it published on an iPad. So it is, the API becomes crucial, the crucial building block of your business.
So you guys have been hinting at this is really about speed, right? This is really about agility, right? This is really about being able to abstract information and serve it up to people in a way differently than they've seen it before.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes us a big shift, right? So are you taking, are the IT innovations out there for you to make this shift right now? I mean, what else are you using to get there?
Oh, well, we're just like I said, we're racing to the cloud, racing to SaaS, racing to agile delivery of new products for our customers, and using the glue, the API glue, to hold it all together. And it's not a model that everybody, you talk about the guild, that everybody in the guild likes.
No.
In fact, 90% of people in the guild hate it. But the other innovation is taking our people and making sure they get it. If they don't, training them to get it. And if we can't make them get it or train them to get it, then they get out. Because you are not going to get these innovations with an old thinking workforce.
They actually self-select.
Yeah, they do.
They self-select. They've decided not to get on the
That's
train.
exactly right.
So you said you don't have to worry about it, they'll self-select.
Yeah. Well, it's what happens. I mean, you've plotted your course, you've communicated effectively. People either going to want to go in that direction, or they're free to do something else.
Correct. It's not a prison camp, right?
Exactly. And so the message is you're not going to have everybody want to take the journey, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Yep.
Right? There'll be other people who want to take that journey.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, here's the other issue that we see. Right? People are going through punishing year to year, quarter to quarter, revenue growth, right? And everyone has to actually follow this. Now, how many people remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So, keep me safe, keep me sheltered, all the way to keep me, worry about my ego. Yeah, self-actualized. I'm self-actualized. This is the business version of it. And so what we have here is, on the bottom is regulatory compliance. So don't get me killed, don't get me fired, and don't get me sued. Operational efficiencies, for every dollar I invest, I'm going to save you 3. Revenue growth is for every dollar I invest, I'm going to help you make 5 and create a new product or product line. Strategic differentiation is this digital transformation, the model shift that we're talking about. And brand is really, like if your company was a person, what would they be like? No, just kidding. It's really about, what you stand for. And that's really kind of the model. Now, this business version, unfortunately, this is exactly where you spend your priorities, you spend your money, you put your resources, you allocate everything. And this is the reason companies aren't growing. Right? And so one of the things that we keep talking to people is like, how do we flip this around? And so if you can actually find a way to drive down the cost of compliance, drive down the cost of the regulatory compliance and operational efficiency piece, you now have the ability to actually think about growth. And
but what's key here is it doesn't matter if the triangles or the pyramid's upside down or right side up. For most companies, they don't know what they spend at any of the layers of any of the strata within the pyramid.
Or the time they spend.
And so you don't have an appreciation, or at least for many companies, they don't have an appreciation for what is the cost that is in revenue growth or operating efficiency or compliance or what have you. How much labor is associated with that? What are my systems cost for operating that strata? And as a consequence, if you're sitting at the executive suite, you really are blind to the fact that the pyramid is shaped the way it is, because you can't really see where the dollars are going. They just don't see it.
Yep.
And so one of the first things you really have to do is attack the understanding of where cost goes, so that you can help everyone get on the same page of how much are we spending in regulatory compliance? How much are we spending to be more operationally efficient? And oh, by the way, did we get it? did we achieve that operational efficiency? And when you don't, when you put that data in black and white in front of people, invariably they get upset. They go, wait a minute, that's not what we're here to do. Why am I spending so much? And once you can galvanize the organization, once you can galvanize leadership, you can start making a difference. And one of the other critical things you have to be able to do to make a change there, I'm a believer in, on the capital side of the equation, splitting the spend into two categories, offense and defense. Yep. How much money are you spending to grow this business? Yep. How much money are you spending to differentiate, to achieve new markets, new products, what have you, versus protecting the already achieved gains? And if you can't create that separation and get people to see it, you can't begin to make this journey.
And to get people to see the spend and then move it around.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of spending 70% of your effort on running the business and 30% of your effort and your capital on innovating, improving, new productizing.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, maybe it's 80-20, maybe it's 90-10. But if you can look at that cost, like you say, and then start to move it around, then you get some horsepower behind winning in the market on satisfying your customers, on cutting cost, on making money, on building new products.
Because you've now gotten will.
That's it.
Well,
people, they go, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
And just to add on a little bit, it's the value of that cost. That's the biggest surprise that we see and I think you just said it appropriately, the cost of running the business, the cost of keeping the business up and running. Two particular areas that we see that a lot is forecasting and planning. The amount of effort that goes into that, and then when you track your consumption and it doesn't really change the way you operate your business, but it's a significant effort. Closing the books, just something fundamentally when we talk about the compliance standpoint, is the amount of the amount of sheer brute force that companies go in to close the books for 3 days, and then the value, the visibility it gives them.
As if they can do it in 3 days.
If they can do it in 3 days, exactly. So addressing the question in terms of flipping, it becomes, it's a little bit easier to have that discussion. And when you actually show the real value of that and how you can simplify as well as optimize.
Absolutely.
No, very, very good point. Very good discussion. So we actually see companies actually fall in different levels in terms of that shift. And one of the ways to look at this is those that are looking at incremental innovation and looks like transformational. So looking at how much you're going to shift. And companies that are proactive versus reactive. And so market leaders are those that go out there and they want to change the world. They're going to do things differently. They're not as reactive to their shareholders. They're not reactive to the teams. They know exactly what mission they're headed, and they're out there to go and win the world. About 5% of companies are that way. Other companies are more like fast followers. They see someone take action, and they'll just try to catch up. They want to do it faster, better, cheaper. They're willing to partner with folks. They're willing to get there to get to that next level. But then 50% of companies are basically cautious adopters. They studied the issue. They've looked at it. They've put committees together. They've looked at it. They still have those committees. They reconvene those committees. They bring them back, right? And they know the issue better than everyone else, but they can't seem to take action.
It's the court of endless appeal.
Yes, it is. And then the last piece are laggards. Laggards don't care. They're in businesses that, the margins aren't that big, not a lot of competitors. Things are going to stay the same for quite some time. And I think by understanding that and where you fit within those organizations, you kind of respond and react differently. So on your end, how did you sell these kind of initiatives inside your companies? Are you guys more, and I'll ask you as kind of self-select market leaders, fast followers, or cautious adopters, but how did you self-select and get these projects inside organizations, get people excited about this?
It's a life or death situation for a media company. It's pretty easy to focus the senior exec and the people who control the purse strings on completely changing the way you do business when your customer is demanding that you completely change the way do your business, or they'll go somewhere else. So it is.
So you have burning platform.
We have a burning platform. We still do.
Yep.
We're not through yet, but at least everybody who runs our business globally knows that we need to be at this very, very quickly, innovatively, with the ability to pivot and change course if we need to, so people buy it because it is life-threatening.
Got it. Ronald, you're in.
In our case, I'm with Sagicor less than 2 years, and You know, when you're new in an organization, you have the opportunity to ask all these awkward questions. Yeah, you just say, look, I'm new here, and you find out that there's all kinds of issues, and as you frame, as you shape, as you bring data to the pain point, you can start affecting hearts and minds. I think what also makes this easier is if you have that burning platform. Or if you're looking at a financial opportunity that is so compelling that the inaction is almost indefensible.
Got it. Okay, Martin, what do you see on clients?
Yeah, it's clearly the cautious adopters, but because everybody's waiting for somebody else is going to blaze that trail, and when they do, you know, we'll jump on board. Or we'll let somebody break that solution in, and then we'll jump along. What's intriguing though, and where we see a lot of value in disruption, is bringing those to the forefront, to the laggards and the cautious adopters. In the minute, the joke I have with a lot of my clients is I've never gone into a client and somebody said, how are they doing this in the power and utility space? Nobody ever asks that, right? But they do ask about financial services, retailers, and so forth. And so when we start introducing sort of that different view of the world, you know, what does Google do? What does Amazon do? What does some of the big retailers do? What does Macy's? What is Amtrak doing? And you start bringing those ideas, the conversations really start to heat up and get very compelling.
All right, lightning round. You got 5 seconds. One thing you want to leave with the audience here today about this whole process, about digital transformation, or how to get started.
Go fast.
Go fast.
Go faster than you think you can, go faster than you're comfortable with, because it's a long journey, and if you don't start now and go fast, you will not get there. Go fast.
All right, Ron.
It's all about velocity. It's about discovering within your value chain where you've got sclerosis, if you will, where you've got labor and systems and costs that are just calcifying the ability of the value chain to be flexible, and start to understand what that looks like, and you can make a difference.
All right, Martin, on your end.
I can't say fast, but
sorry you went last.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have rotated that one.
Focus on the velocity. Yeah, exactly. My vocabulary is not big enough to come with a third word. Is focus on the value first, because the trip there may be uncomfortable, and if you can keep your eye on the value, it makes it a lot easier.
All right, so focus on value, go fast, go faster than fast, and hit escape velocity. Give a big round of applause for this panel. Thank you, everyone.